Okay, let's start with the baby millionaire.
Yeah, so baby millionaire is really the easiest, right? Of course, baby himself or herself won't know how to do it. It's really parents or
Right.
grandparents.
Right.
It's really, if you just have the easiest way is really instead of taking baby to Disney, or in addition to that, if you start with just $1,000 when the baby is born, either it was one time or maybe over a few years, by the time the baby turns to age 65, 66, 67, depends on the APR, annual rate of return, you're going to get a million there. So it
Well, now, wait a minute.
sounds so easy, right?
Hold on. Let me make sure I understand this. So, for all the listeners who are going, wait a minute, we got to check Young's math. If you save $1,000 in the first year of a child's life and you leave it alone, and I assume you're getting an average of what, 7%, 8%? I don't know what percent you would
So
use.
this is based on a little bit more than 7%. So I did a research on the historical return of the S&P 500,
Yeah.
the 500 biggest company over the last 100 years or so.
Yes.
On average, about 10 to 11%.
10 to 11. So $1,000 invested at 10 to 11% on average, some years less, some years more, for
Yeah.
65 years leads someone to be a millionaire, which is absolutely amazing. I love that. So, not for the babies, because we've already decided they're not old enough to open an account, and certainly are not disciplined enough to take $1,000 and put it in there. So it's for mom or dad, or even as grandparents, which would be amazing to be able to do that for some grandkids. Anything else you want to talk to us about in terms of the baby millionaires?
I would say this will be the best birthday present, right? One can give to a baby. And for somebody who cannot afford to do $1,000, that right at the year one,
Right.
you can develop to do 100, 200 over the next 5 or 10 years. You will still get to that. My book will talk about a little bit more detail on that one, right? The $1,000 we talk about just one-time investment,
Right.
but certainly when unlimited, better you can add on later on. So you can make it, instead of baby million, you can make a baby multi-million.
We've talked about starting from the time you're born. Now, what if most people graduate from high school at 18, your book says, and which is true, and if they started saving money every single year, what would it look like for them to become a millionaire? And are you saying running these numbers up until they're 65 years old or 70 years old, or how long are you running the numbers out for?
So there's two different ways. You can run in the number all the way to 65,
Okay.
or you can just do investment for, let's say, the next 10, 20, 30 years, then
Yeah.
stop putting more money into it, right? Just the amount of money to be put in will be different depending on how you want to do it.
Yeah.
So if people start to invest after 18, it's going to be so easy to become a million by the time they retire, right? Then the other thing, I think the best way really I like maybe to mention is so-called the wonderful Roth IRA millionaire. The Roth IRA, all the money you get, you don't pay tax, unless of course if the law change in the future, right?
Right.
So
So
right now, if I just put a number out there, right now you can contribute $7,000 a year
Okay.
to Roth IRA.
Okay.
Of course, for people 18 years old, it might be difficult to do that.
That's right.
Each year. However, if for some reason you're able to do that, if you do that continue until 65, the mass say you're going to get like almost $6 million.
Wait a minute. So say that again. If you try to invest $7,000 a year from 18 till 65, you would have how many million?
By the time you get there, it's about 6 million, depends on, of course, the NPR. This is based on about 10% annual return. I mean, to add to the example just mentioned, right? If you put $7,000 every year into the Roth IRA, the total amount of money invested is only $300,000, but the compounding growth gets you to 6 or 5 or million, depends on how you do your investment. So that's just amazing, isn't it?
Let's talk about someone who is in their 40s. What would they need to do? What would they need to save? And how long would they need to save it in order to become a millionaire themselves?
Yeah. So, of course, the later the start, the more difficult in the sense because you will have to do two things. One is you have to invest more money. Second, you have less number of years to compound the growth, right?
Right.
I think if I remember correctly, in my book, I had an example. If you about 40 years old, you start to invest, it's still not too late. If
Yep.
you just invest $12,000 a year, basically about $1,000.
$1,000 a month.
So a month.
Okay.
And for 10 years, if I remember correctly, you know, let me can check on my book on that. I think by the time age 65, we can still get to $1 million.